Hi, my name is David Gerry, and I am the reading instructor here at Honors Prep Academy. So with reading passages, we have both SAT and ACT passages that students commonly do. So today, instead of looking at an SAT passage, we're going to be looking at an ACT passage. Now, the thing with ACT passages is they give you a lot less time than SAT passages, but they are easier in nature. So with ACT passages, as long as we understand how to solve the problem strategically, we can complete passages in a lot quicker of time. So in this case, we're going to be looking at a fiction passage today. So with fiction passages, generally they can be difficult for students because students believe that they have to read the entire thing before they can start answering the questions, which is not true at all. So with this ACT fiction passage, what we're going to first do is we're going to read the first few lines. So it says, one of my best senior years could hardly be called a race at all. I was a senior gunning to qualify for the US Junior Nationals. Okay, so now we have a sense of what the subject is, who is I in this case, right? I'm talking about my personal experience and sort of what they're doing. They're trying to get into the US Junior Nationals. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at all of the paragraphs in the same way, read the first sentence. By the time I stood up on the blocks, I was not only the one in the race, I was practically the only one in the natatorium. Okay, so they're talking about the race specifically here as well. And as we proceed, about 100 years, and my coach started to pace. Okay, so now we have something that's seemingly different in terms of the subject. So now it's not about me, but it's about the coach. Remembering sort of how the passage is organized in terms of subjects is extremely important with ACT because we're gonna have to come back to these paragraphs specifically. So, I mean, it might help you to write, for example, coach, right? Whereas before it was about I. Okay, and then we are going to keep reading. Sometimes a moment comes along when the world slows down and though everything else moves around us at the same frantic speed. Okay, this is a very long sentence. But what's important here is this is not about the narrator, it's about the world. So we have a new subject here too. So again, this is about the world. And then as we keep going, we look at the next paragraph. Let's see. The triangular backstrip flags were strung across the lanes in the adjacent driving wheel. So I'm not necessarily sure what we're talking about in terms of the subject yet. But if we keep reading, it says, my teammates like to run down the long cement deck, jump out over the diving wall, and try to grab hold of the line. Okay, so it looks like they're talking about our teammates here. So we have all of these different subjects. So we have first I, and then coach, and then in this case, the world, and then in this case, teammates. So then finally, let's look at this last paragraph. It said, now it's March and I was down to my last opportunity. Okay, so it seems like they're talking about time here. So they said March. So given the fact that they talked about March, maybe we have a different time that's coming out in this passage. So we look and see, do we have any other dates here? Do we have any other dates? So actually, when we look at line 44, it says, I remembered a day in late September, the year before, the last day my swim team had use of an outdoor pool. Okay, so we have both March and September coming in as different dates, which would give us some important information about what we need to answer. So the narrative of the passage can be best described as a swimmer who primarily what? So with this kind of question, we want to skip it, right? Because it is what? A main idea question. So we're going to skip this question, without the second one. Which of the following events mentioned in the passage happened first chronologically? Okay, so here we go. So with this kind of question, yes, it is a main idea question, but we just looked at the dates, right? We saw that the two dates sort of came out, March and September. So it looks like September was a flashback, right? So it looked like September was the first date they talked about, and then they talked about March, which was what this passage started with and what this passage ended with, this March date. So when we look at this passage, let's look at the potential answers here for number 2. So his senior year. So We know that this first date was September, right? So when we look at these different choices, we know that the answer must be what? G, September, as we saw before. Okay, number 3. Narrator describes the natatorium as being nearly empty of spectators the day of his race in order to what? Okay, so when we look at this question, let's see if we have any potential answers that are good here. So with this kind of question, that we're talking about a specific moment within the passage, and they talked about natatorium. So let's try to find just the words natatorium. Natatorium, we actually already highlighted it. Remember, it was the second paragraph's first sentence. So it said, I was practically the only one in the natatorium. So the narrator was by himself, and let's see what it says. I was angry and disheartened at having missed the cut the day before. Okay, so it looks like being the one in the natatorium gave the sort of the subject, the person this is talking about, sort of discouragement, right? So they didn't necessarily feel good about being the only one in the natatorium. So we know B can't be the answer. What about C? C can't be the answer. D, why I felt a rush of energy. Nope, this is actually a negative answer that we're looking for. So A must be the answer here. And then if we go on to number 4, the narrator indicates that when you swim the 1,000 yard freestyle in this time trial as the world for a moment seemed to be what? So again, why this kind of question is easy is because we already talked about when the world was the subject of the passage. So if we recall, if we look at line 37, we have this idea of the world. And the world what? Slowing down. Okay, so when we look, slowing down, allowing them to reflect in real time. Exactly. So I think it's interesting because if you look at the ACT, they really do give you the answers for a lot of these questions directly. But we can just sort of in our minds have sort of a visual organization of when these specific different subjects come out, then it becomes a lot easier to answer these questions quickly. I truly do believe that if you're able to sort of visualize the organization of the passage, doing this passage within less than 5 minutes is something extremely likely. So let's move on to number 5. The passage indicates that during the narrator's time trial, he understood for the first time that what? So when we look at this passage, let's see. The time trial. So we need to find a time trial, right? Let's look. Time trial. So let's look. The time trial actually comes out last, right? So what does it say? It mattered before because it was a task before me. Now the thing I wanted now. Okay, so something that's extremely important to him, right? So when we look back at the answers, what makes the most sense is the swim was an event that was important to him alone. So C. Okay, so moving on, let's look at the rest of the answers. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, these are all line questions, and then we would proceed to answer number 1 in that order. So honestly, these passages may seem daunting in terms of what you actually have to find, but if we strategically organize things like we did before, understand when certain dates come out, then this passage becomes infinitely easier to solve. Thank you for listening, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you.